Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something you rarely see in those glossy documentaries about mummies and gold. Sarcophagi, the strange, sometimes terrifying, often profound nightlife of ancient Egypt. Forget your neon lights and Netflix. When the sun dipped below the western desert, a completely different world emerged. One shaped by darkness, mystery, and the relentless pulse of the Nile. It wasn't all grand banquets and temple rituals. For most, it was a world of flickering lamps and watchful shadows, a stark contrast to your brightly lit comfort. Before we journey back to that ancient land, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Alright, find that cozy spot, pull your blanket a little tighter, and let's slip into the ancient Egyptian night. As the fiery orb of Ra, the sun god, begins its slow, majestic descent towards the western horizon, painting the sky in hues of blazing orange, deep crimson, and finally, a soft, ethereal lavender. You feel a shift in the very air around you. The relentless, searing heat of the Egyptian day, which has pressed down on your brow, baked the mud-brick walls of your home, and shimmered off the broad expanse of the Nile, now begins to relent. It's a subtle change at first, a lessening of the sun's direct brutality. But soon, as the shadows lengthen and stretch across the dusty ground, you sense a profound transformation. This isn't the gentle, lingering twilight you might know in your world, with streetlights clicking on and illuminated signs beginning to glow. No, this is a much more dramatic, almost primal transition. You are standing, let's say, on the sun-baked bank of the Nile, perhaps having spent your day tilling fields of barley or flax, or hauling baskets of clay from the riverbed, or even carving hieroglyphs into a temple wall. Your muscles ache, your skin is a deep, burnished bronze from countless days under that unforgiving sun, and the fine dust of Egypt seems to have permanently settled into every pore, every fold of your simple linen kilt. As Ra sinks lower, the air, still warm, takes on a new quality, almost a thickness, as if the day's heat is reluctantly giving way to the cool breath of the desert night. The sounds around you begin to change too. The insistent, rhythmic chants of workers, the distant clamor of a bustling market, the creak of wooden tools, the splash of water from irrigation ditches. These daytime noises, so central to the waking world, start to fade. They are replaced by a new symphony, one that is both calming and slightly unsettling. You hear the deep, resonant lowing of cattle being led back to their enclosures, their hooves scuffing softly on the dry earth. The bleating of goats echoes from nearby villages. You might catch the distant, mournful cry of an ibis or the rustle of reeds as a small crocodile slips silently back into the dark waters of the Nile. The smells are equally transformative. The dry, earthy scent of dust and baked mud brick mingled with the faint aroma of roasting grain from a communal oven starts to intertwine with the cooler, damper scent rising from the river. It's the smell of life and decay, of rich, fertile silt and the brackish water, a scent that is utterly unique to the Nile Valley. As true darkness approaches, you might even detect the fainter, more ethereal fragrance of night-blooming jasmine or the sweet, heavy perfume of a lotus flower, just beginning to unfurl its petals in the fading light. Your gaze follows the sun as it dips below the ragged edge of the western desert, the mythical realm where the dead reside and where Ra begins his perilous journey through the Duat, the underworld. This isn't just a beautiful sunset. It's a deeply spiritual moment. You feel the weight of countless generations who have watched this same spectacle, who have understood the daily death and rebirth of the most powerful god in their pantheon. It imbues the coming night with a profound significance. Without Ra's protective light, the forces of chaos and darkness, represented by the serpent Apep, could hold sway. So, as the last sliver of sun disappears, a collective sigh, almost imperceptible, seems to ripple through the land, a mix of relief from the heat and a quiet, ancient apprehension. The transition from dusk to full night is surprisingly swift. There's no prolonged twilight hour, no gradual dimming that allows your eyes to adjust comfortably. One moment, there's still enough light to see the path ahead of you, the faces of your neighbors. The next, a profound, almost absolute darkness descends. It's a darkness so deep, so encompassing, that it feels almost physical. Without the pervasive glow of electric lights, the night sky opens up above you in a way you've likely never experienced. The stars, countless diamonds, scattered across an inky black velvet cloth, blaze with an intensity that steals your breath. The Milky Way, a shimmering river of light, arcs majestically overhead, a celestial counterpart to the earthly Nile. You can pick out the familiar constellations: Orion, the Divine Hunter, and the Big Dipper, which guides your sailors with an almost effortless clarity. But this incredible celestial display comes at a cost to your earthly vision. Navigating becomes a challenge. The familiar paths you walked by day now feel treacherous, filled with unseen obstacles. You instinctively slow your pace, your feet shuffling cautiously, your hands reaching out to feel the rough texture of a mud brick wall or the sturdy trunk of a palm tree, guiding you through the encroaching gloom. The air, which had retained some of the day's warmth, now grows noticeably cooler, especially if there's a breeze from the desert. You might pull your thin linen shawl a little tighter around your shoulders, a small shiver tracing its way down your spine. As you make your way towards your small, unlit home, the sounds of humanity become more contained, more intimate. You hear the low murmur of voices from behind closed doors, the faint, comforting clang of pottery, the rhythmic grind of grain being prepared for the evening meal. These are the sounds of families gathering, of the domestic sphere taking precedence. Now that the public world of labor has ceased, the shift in your own body is equally noticeable. The weariness from the day's labor settles deeper into your bones. But it's a different kind of tired now, a heavy, contented exhaustion that invites rest. Your senses, deprived of clear sight, sharpen in other ways. Your ears become more attuned to the rustle of a passing lizard, the distant hoot of an owl, the drone of night insects. Your sense of smell, already heightened by the evening air, picks up on subtle nuances: the smoke from a neighbor's cooking fire, the faint sweetness of fermenting dates, the musky scent of a sleeping cat. This transition from the brightness and activity of day to the quiet, profound darkness of night isn't just a physical change. It's a mental and emotional one. The world shrinks, becoming more immediate, more personal. Your focus shifts from the vast, expansive fields and bustling workshops to the intimate space of your home, your family, and your inner thoughts. You are now fully immersed in the strange, ancient rhythm of the Egyptian night, a rhythm that dictates when you sleep, what you fear, and what dreams you might chase through the hours of darkness. The day's gods have retreated, and the spirits of the night, both benevolent and malevolent, begin their subtle dance. You feel their presence in the sudden, unexplained creak of a door, the whisper of the wind through dry reeds, the profound silence that can be both comforting and deeply unnerving. This is not just nightfall. It is a gateway to another dimension of existence, one where the visible world recedes and the unseen world draws closer. And as you step through that gateway, you are utterly, irrevocably a part of it. Now, let's step inside. You push aside the simple woven mat that serves as your door, ducking slightly to enter the familiar, comforting darkness of your small mud-brick home. The air inside is still warm, holding the day's heat, but it's a gentler warmth, a contained warmth that promises to slowly dissipate as the night progresses. Your first task, a ritual performed every evening, is to banish the deepest gloom. You reach for the small clay lamp, a simple bowl with a pinched spout for the wick, and carefully light it. The flax wick, soaked in castor oil or perhaps sesame oil if you're fortunate, catches with a tiny pop, then blooms into a small, fragile flame. This isn't the robust, encompassing light you know from your modern world. This is a meek, flickering presence, barely pushing back the encroaching shadows. It casts dancing, exaggerated forms on the uneven mud-plastered walls. A single lamp might illuminate only a small circle, leaving the corners of the room in deep, shifting darkness. If you are a family of means, you might have 2 or 3 lamps, strategically placed, but for most, one precious flame is all there is. This scarcity of light fundamentally shapes your experience of the night within your home. Your family gathers. Your elderly mother might be meticulously grinding grain on a quern stone. The rhythmic thud scrape, a constant, comforting backdrop. Your younger siblings, perhaps already sleepy, huddle together on straw mats, their faces illuminated in the lamp's soft glow, their eyes wide with the day's last fragments of energy. Your spouse, perhaps, is carefully mending a torn tunic with a bone needle, the thread painstakingly drawn through the coarse linen. There is a distinct lack of privacy in this small, single-room dwelling. Every sound, every movement, every whisper is shared. The intimacy is profound, born of necessity. You eat your evening meal, perhaps a simple dish of lentils, flatbread and onions, washed down with beer in the lamplight, your hands reaching into the common bowl. The food is plain, but nourishing, and the shared experience of breaking bread after a long day of labor is a sacred ritual in itself. You feel the warmth of your family's bodies close to yours, hear the soft chewing, the occasional sigh of contentment. Conversation is different at night. It's softer, more reflective. The boisterous chatter of the day gives way to tales of the day's events, recounted in hushed tones. Perhaps your father tells a story passed down through generations, a myth of Isis and Osiris, or a cautionary tale about disrespecting the gods. These aren't just stories. They are the threads that weave your family together, that connect you to your ancestors and to the very fabric of your world. You listen, mesmerized, the flickering lamp making the shadows dance, giving life to the characters in the narrative. Children, despite their earlier sleepiness, often resist the final plunge into slumber. They might play simple games in the lamplit circle, perhaps a game of sonnet, if you possess a board, or just shadow play against the wall, their small figures contorting into fantastic shapes. But eventually, their eyelids grow heavy, and they curl up on their mats, sometimes sharing a blanket or a thin sheet as the night deepens. The air inside your home grows cooler, eventually becoming quite pleasant after the day's oppressive heat. The sounds from outside diminish further, save for the occasional distant bark of a dog or the persistent hum of a mosquito that managed to slip past the rudimentary netting over your window opening. The darkness outside your door feels vast and absolute, a tangible presence pressing against the thin walls of your sanctuary. This makes the small, flickering light within all the more precious, a tiny defiant beacon against the unknown. Your preparations for sleep are simple. There's no elaborate nightly routine. You might wash your feet in a basin of cool water, scrubbing away the day's dust and grime. Your sleeping mat is laid out, perhaps directly on the packed earth floor, or on a low platform if you have one. Your pillow is a carved wooden headrest, surprisingly comfortable once you become accustomed to it, designed to keep your head cool and protect elaborate hairstyles. You lie down, the oil lamp perhaps still burning, or perhaps extinguished to conserve precious fuel, plunging the room into near total darkness, broken only by the faint light filtering in from the moon and stars through the small opening in your roof. Even in darkness, your senses are active. You hear the soft, even breathing of your sleeping family members. The scent of stale incense, if you burned any earlier, lingers faintly, mingled with the earthy smell of the mud brick and the subtle aroma of bodies. You feel the coolness of the earth beneath your mat, the texture of the linen against your skin. Sleep comes, sometimes quickly, sometimes after a period of quiet reflection. Your dreams, when they come, are vivid, sometimes attributed to visits from gods or ancestors, or omens from the future. The quality of sleep is different, too. There are no sudden jolts of artificial light from passing cars, no distant hum of technology. It's a deeper, more profound rest, dictated by the natural rhythms of light and dark. Yet, even in sleep, there's a heightened sense of awareness. The silence of the night can be broken by unexpected noises, the scurrying of a mouse, the rustle of something outside your door. These sounds, amplified by the darkness, can momentarily stir you from your slumber. A tiny prickle of ancient fear, a reminder that the world outside your walls holds its own dangers. You might pull your blanket higher, a subconscious gesture of seeking protection as the night wears on. The air grows colder still, especially in the cooler seasons. You might shiver slightly, pulling your linen cloth tighter. But eventually, the deep sleep claims you fully, carrying you through the long hours of darkness. The experience of night in your ancient Egyptian home is one of profound simplicity, intimate shared space, and a deep connection to the natural cycles of your world. It strips away the distractions of the day, forcing you to confront the quietude, the darkness, and the fundamental bonds of family. It's a world utterly alien to your brightly lit, individualistic existence, and in its starkness, it offers a glimpse into a very different kind of human experience, one shaped by the flicker of a single lamp and the comforting presence of those you hold dear, beyond the humble mud-brick homes. As the inky blackness truly settles over the land, another, more profound kind of nightlife stirs, the sacred rituals within the towering temples dedicated to the gods. While your family huddles by a single lamp, the priests and priestesses of Egypt are just beginning their nightly duties, communing with the divine in ways you, the ordinary person, can only imagine or sometimes witness from afar. This is not entertainment. It is spiritual work, vital for maintaining Mat, the cosmic order, and ensuring the continued prosperity of Egypt. Imagine you are standing on the edge of a bustling temple precinct in, say, Thebes or Memphis. During the day, this area would have been a hive of activity, pilgrims bringing offerings, scribes recording donations, artisans carving relief scenes. But now, under the vast star-dusted sky, it takes on an entirely different, almost ethereal quality. The massive pylons, which seemed so imposing in the daylight, now loom like silent, watchful giants against the backdrop of the Milky Way, their intricate carvings softened by the darkness, only hinted at by the faint light from within. You might catch the distant, rhythmic beat of a drum, a soft, hypnotic sound that vibrates through the earth, a sound unlike any you've heard during the day. This could be the prelude to a nocturnal procession, or a meditation within the inner sanctuaries. The air, already cool, now carries a distinct, heavy scent of incense, perhaps myrrh, frankincense, or kifi, a complex, smoky blend believed to be particularly pleasing to the gods and conducive to dreaming. This fragrance, rich and exotic, hangs in the still night air, a tangible manifestation of the sacred work being performed. As you draw a little closer, you might see figures moving within the temple courts, their white linen robes standing out against the deepening shadows. These are the priests and priestesses, their heads shaven smooth, their movements deliberate and imbued with a sense of purpose. They carry tall, slender torches made of bundles of reeds soaked in oil, which cast long, dancing shadows, making their forms seem larger, more imposing. The flickering light catches the polished surfaces of granite obelisks and the gold-leafed tips of flagpoles, creating brief, dazzling flashes that quickly fade back into the gloom. One of the primary nocturnal duties of the priests is to perform the opening of the mouth ritual on cult statues of the gods. You can't see this, of course, as it takes place deep within the temple's most sacred, secluded chambers, the Holy of Holies, accessible only to the highest-ranking priests. But you know it is happening. You imagine the priest entering the darkened sanctuary, breaking the seal on the shrine, and awakening the divine presence within the statue. He would offer prayers, libations, and food, symbolically feeding and clothing the god, much as you care for your own family. The very act of performing these rituals at night, when the world is quiet and the veil between the living and the divine is thinnest, is believed to strengthen the connection to the gods, sometimes for special festivals. The priests might process the cult statue of a god out of its sanctuary and into the open courts, or even onto the Nile in a sacred barge. You would know of the Ok, the glorified spirit, which could be helpful or vengeful depending on its treatment in life and death. The fear of being cursed by an angry Ark would be a powerful deterrent against disturbing tombs or disrespecting the dead. For the ancient Egyptians, the afterlife was not a distant, abstract concept. It was a parallel reality intimately connected to your daily life, especially at night. The setting sun was not just the end of the day, but the beginning of Ra's journey through the underworld, illuminating the paths of the deceased. The stars above were not just distant lights, but the homes of the justified dead, the imperishable ones, who would live forever among the constellations as you turn away from the silent grandeur of the necropolis, leaving the dead to their eternal slumber. You carry with you a profound sense of the unseen world. The darkness here is not just an absence of light. It is a canvas upon which the ancient beliefs in spirits, the afterlife, and the journey of the soul are vividly painted. You feel a deep respect for the boundary between the living and the dead, a boundary that is thin and permeable under the vast, watchful eye of the Egyptian night sky, especially when the living world sleeps and the spirits are free to roam. The experience is sobering, a reminder of your own mortality and the great mystery that awaits you when your time comes to journey west. While the majority of Egyptians experienced a quiet, intimate night within their humble homes or toiled through sacred duties, there was another, far more vibrant and decadent side to the ancient Egyptian nightlife, the lavish feasts and festivities of the elite. For the pharaoh, his court, and the wealthy nobles, the setting sun was not a call to early sleep, but an invitation to extravagance, celebration, and sensory indulgence. This was a world utterly removed from your simple existence, a dazzling spectacle of light, sound, taste, and pleasure. Imagine you are a privileged guest, perhaps a high-ranking scribe or a favored official, invited to a grand banquet at a nobleman's sprawling estate. As dusk settles, your servant carefully dresses you in fine, sheer linen, perfumed with exotic oils. Your hair, if you are a man, might be carefully groomed, or if you are a woman, styled with intricate braids and adorned with delicate gold ornaments. The transition from day to night for you is not about battling darkness, but about embracing a new kind of artificial brilliance. As you approach the villa, its gardens, which shimmered with lush greenery and vibrant flowers by day, are now transformed. Hundreds of oil lamps, perhaps made of alabaster or intricately painted pottery, cast a warm golden glow across the pathways and courtyards. Torches, tall and flaring, illuminate key architectural features, their flames dancing in the evening breeze. The air is thick with the heady perfume of blooming flowers and the unmistakable, rich aroma of roasting meats mingled with exotic spices. The sounds that greet you are a delightful cacophony, the lilting, hypnotic strumming of a harp, its strings played by a skilled musician, the rhythmic beat of a hand drum setting a sensual pulse, the clear sweet notes of a double oboe or a flute, and above it all, the joyful, uninhibited laughter and chatter of the guests, their voices carrying on the cool night air. This is a sound of pure revelry, a stark contrast to the quiet murmurings in your own humble home. You are ushered into an open-air pavilion, perhaps decorated with richly painted columns depicting scenes of daily life, gods, or hunting. The floor is covered with colorful mats and carpets, a luxury unknown to most. Servants, dressed in clean, starched linen, move silently and efficiently, attending to every need. You recline on low couches, adorned with embroidered cushions, or sit on ornate chairs, arranged around low tables laden with food, and what food it is. This is not the simple fare of the common people. Platters of roasted duck, succulent beef, and tender gazelle meat are brought forth, glistening with oils and herbs. Baskets overflow with fresh dates, ripe figs, juicy pomegranates, and sweet grapes. Bowls of rich stews, savory breads, and delicate pastries tempt your palate. You drink not just beer, but fine wines, red and white, stored in elegant amphorae, their seals broken for this special occasion. Each mouthful is an explosion of flavor, a testament to the bounty and culinary artistry of Egypt's wealthy. But the feast is not just about food. It is a full sensory experience. Beautiful dancers, both male and female, their bodies supple and adorned with minimal clothing, move with sinuous grace to the music. Their movements are fluid, suggestive, telling stories of love, nature, and the gods. Musicians play, their melodies weaving through the air, sometimes mournful, sometimes exhilarating. Singers, often accompanied by lyres or harps, sing songs of praise for the host, or ancient love poems, their voices clear and melodic. As the night progresses, the revelry intensifies. Servants move among the guests, offering garlands of fresh lotus flowers to wear around your neck or in your hair, their delicate scent adding to the sensory overload. Small cones of scented fat, placed on the heads of the most distinguished guests, slowly melt, releasing fragrant oils that trickle down their hair and clothes, keeping them perfumed throughout the evening. This is a subtle yet potent symbol of status and indulgence. The wine flows freely, and the mood becomes increasingly jovial, even boisterous. Conversations are lively, full of witty banter, political gossip, and philosophical debate. You might discuss the latest news from the pharaoh's court, the success of a recent military campaign, or the intricacies of a new religious decree. The air hums with intellectual stimulation and social interaction as the night deepens. Some guests might engage in games, perhaps a challenging round of Sanut or other board games. Others might simply relax, enjoying the music, the company, and the sheer luxury of The stars, which you would normally observe from your humble dwelling, are now merely a distant backdrop to this brilliant, man-made spectacle. The night is conquered, not by darkness, but by the determined glow of hundreds of lamps, defying the natural order. This is a night of profound escape from the realities of everyday life, a celebration of earthly pleasures and human ingenuity. There is no fear of spirits here, no quiet apprehension of the unknown, only the warm embrace of light, music, food, and companionship. The very purpose of these festivities is to assert control over the night, to make it a time of joy and indulgence, rather than a time of quiet contemplation or veiled fear. However, even in this world of luxury, there is a subtle understanding of the cycle of life and death. The songs, though joyful, might sometimes touch upon themes of mortality, urging you to seize the day, or rather, seize the night for pleasure, for you cannot take your riches with you. The carvings on the walls might depict funerary scenes, a quiet reminder that even the most extravagant feast must eventually end, as the first faint streaks of dawn begin to appear in the eastern sky, signaling Ra's imminent return. The banquet slowly winds down. The music grows softer, the conversations more subdued. Guests begin to depart, their senses saturated, their bodies weary but content. You, as a privileged participant, carry with you the lingering scent of lotus and myrrh, the faint taste of wine, and the echo of joyful music. You return to your own grand home, perhaps to sleep through the heat of the morning, ready to re-emerge for the day's duties, but carrying the memory of a night of unparalleled delight. The nightlife of the elite, therefore, stands in stark contrast to the experiences of the common people. It is a testament to the power of wealth and status to transform the very nature of night itself, from a time of quiet retreat and spiritual contemplation to a vibrant, dazzling canvas for human pleasure and social connection. It's a glimpse into a world where the darkness is not feared but illuminated, and where the boundaries between day and night are blurred by the sheer will to celebrate and indulge. Now, let's pull back from the gilded halls of the elite and return to the more common, grittier reality of the ancient Egyptian night. For the vast majority of people, once the sun had truly set and the meager light of your oil lamp barely pushed back the gloom, the world outside your mud-brick home transformed into a place of tangible danger. This wasn't just the subtle unease of spirits, but very real, very physical threats that could emerge from the absolute darkness. Without your modern streetlights, security systems, and rapid emergency services, the night was a wilder, more perilous time. Imagine you were forced to travel after dark. Perhaps an emergency demands your presence at a neighboring village, or you are a messenger carrying an urgent missive. Your journey begins with a sense of trepidation. The familiar path you tread by day winding along the edge of the irrigation canal or through the fields, now feels alien and treacherous. Each step is uncertain. The very ground, unseen, could conceal a loose stone, a sudden drop, or a lurking creature. The darkness is so profound that your hands instinctively reach out, trying to feel your way, while your eyes strain to distinguish shapes from shadows. One of the most immediate dangers comes from the animal kingdom. While many creatures sleep, others awaken with the night. Jackals, their lean bodies adapted to the arid landscape, might stalk the periphery of villages, their mournful, unsettling howls cutting through the silence. These aren't just nuisance animals. They could pose a threat to livestock, or even to a lone, vulnerable traveler. Their eyes, glowing faintly in the deepest shadows, could send a shiver down your spine. Then there are the more venomous threats. Scorpions, their segmented tails poised, would emerge from their daytime hiding places under rocks and in cracks, scuttling across the cool sand. A single misstep in the darkness could mean a searing, agonizing sting, potentially fatal without immediate, effective treatment, something not always available in a remote village in the dead of night. Snakes too, though less active in the cooler night, were always a possibility, their silent slither a terrifying thought in the unseen undergrowth. You would walk with immense caution, your bare feet treading lightly, hoping to avoid any unpleasant encounters. But the most insidious dangers often came from other humans. Without organized police forces patrolling every corner, the night provided a cloak for opportunistic criminals. Bandits, perhaps desperate farmers or outcasts, would lie in wait along less traveled roads or near vital irrigation channels, ready to ambush lone travelers or small groups. Their motivation? Simple survival, driven by poverty or a desire for ill-gotten gains. The darkness was their ally, making identification difficult and escape easier. The very thought of encountering such individuals in the overwhelming darkness, far from the safety of your village, would fill you with dread. Your only defense would be vigilance, a stout staff, and perhaps the faint hope of divine protection. The lack of effective street lighting also meant that even within a village, accidental dangers were amplified. A stumble in the dark could lead to a broken limb, a fall into an open well, or a collision with an unseen obstacle. Fires, though rare, were catastrophic. A single oil lamp knocked over in a mud-brick dwelling could quickly engulf the highly flammable papyrus and straw, turning a home into an inferno in minutes, all under the cover of a darkness that would make rescue attempts incredibly difficult and disorienting. The entire community would rally, but the absence of light would be a formidable foe. The vulnerability of your home was also a constant concern. While the thick mud-brick walls provided insulation, they offered limited protection against determined intruders. The simple mat or wooden door was hardly a fortress. You might stack heavy stones or timbers against it, a rudimentary but essential security measure. You would sleep, but perhaps with one ear tuned to the sounds outside, listening for any unusual stirrings, any footsteps that didn't belong. The presence of your family close by offered a measure of comfort, but also a heightened sense of responsibility. You were their protector, even within the relative safety of your village. Disputes could erupt under the cover of night. Drunken arguments, fueled by cheap beer, could escalate into violence. Personal feuds, simmering during the day, might boil over when shadows provided anonymity. The absence of clear witnesses and the general chaos of darkness meant that justice was often delayed, or even impossible to achieve, until the revealing light of dawn. For those working the night shifts, perhaps the aforementioned tomb guardians, or fishermen casting their nets by moonlight, the dangers were even more pronounced. A fisherman on the Nile, guided only by the stars and a small lamp, risked encountering hippopotamuses, surprisingly aggressive and dangerous creatures, or being swept away by a strong current. The river, so central to life, could become a perilous entity under the veil of night. The very concept of being lost took on a terrifying dimension in ancient Egypt after dark. Without landmarks visible, without roads or clear signs, disorientation was easy, especially if you strayed from a known path. The desert, unforgiving even by day, became a vast, silent, and deadly labyrinth at night. To be lost in the desert after dark was to face dehydration, exposure to cold, and the predatory animals, all while feeling an overwhelming sense of isolation and despair. This pervasive sense of danger profoundly shaped the experience of night. It fostered a deep appreciation for the coming dawn, for the return of Ra, the ultimate protector against the forces of chaos and darkness. It encouraged early retirement to the safety of one's home and family. It made communal living more essential as there was safety in numbers, and it strengthened your reliance on the gods, appealing to them for protection from the myriad threats that emerged with the setting sun. So, as you snuggle deeper into your modern bed, surrounded by the comforting glow of your bedside lamp and the hum of distant city sounds, spare a thought for your ancient Egyptian counterpart. Their night was a far more primal, perilous affair, a time when the world became both mysterious and overtly threatening. The darkness was not just an absence of light, it was an active entity, a veil behind which dangers, both natural and human, lurked, waiting for the cover of night to make their move. You learnt to respect the darkness, to fear it, and to cherish the warmth and safety of your flickering lamp, knowing that outside, the shadows deepened and ancient dangers stirred. Let's delve into a different facet of the ancient Egyptian night, one less talked about in the grand narratives of pharaohs and pyramids, but no less human. The world of love, desire, and illicit pleasures that sometimes unfolded under the cloak of darkness. While the day was governed by societal norms, family expectations, and rigid social structures, the night, with its shadows and anonymity, offered opportunities for desires to be explored. Sometimes openly, sometimes in secret. Imagine the young lovers. In a society where marriages were often arranged for practical or economic reasons, true romantic love, though celebrated in poetry, might not always coincide with marital bonds. For those whose hearts belonged elsewhere, or for those simply seeking a moment of forbidden passion, the night was their confidant. You might sneak away from your family home after everyone else had fallen into a deep sleep, your heart pounding a rhythm against your ribs louder than the distant beat of any drum. Your rendezvous would be in a secluded grove of palms, by the whispering reeds of a quiet irrigation canal, or perhaps in the shadows of an abandoned building. The moonlight, if present, would cast a soft, ethereal glow, transforming the familiar landscape into a romantic, dreamlike setting. The air, cooled by the night, would carry the scent of night-blooming jasmine or the earthy smell of the Nile, adding to the sensory intensity of the moment. You would feel the thrill of the forbidden, the exquisite anticipation of meeting your beloved, risking societal disapproval for a stolen moment of intimacy. Their whispered conversations, the soft touch of hands, the shared glances in the dim light, these moments would be imbued with an intense emotional weight. made all the more precious by their secrecy. Ancient Egyptian love poetry, often found inscribed on astraca or papyri, speaks eloquently of such clandestine meetings, of lovers yearning for each other under the watchful stars, celebrating the physical and emotional bond. Oh, that you would come to me at night, with the moon as our only witness, a poem might read, capturing the essence of these hidden desires, beyond romantic love. There was also the more commercial side of pleasure. While not openly discussed, prostitution certainly existed in ancient Egypt, as it does in nearly every society. For some women and men, often on the fringes of society or driven by economic hardship, the night offered a means of livelihood. These individuals would frequent taverns, less reputable drinking establishments, or specific quarters of larger cities, discreetly signaling their availability. Imagine you are in a bustling market town and it is late evening. The main market stalls have closed, but a few establishments catering to a different clientele remain open, dimly lit. You might hear the raucous laughter from within, the clinking of ceramic beer jars, and the slightly off-key singing of drunken patrons. The air would be thick with the smell of stale beer, body odor, and cheap incense meant to mask the less pleasant aromas. Here, in the smoky gloom, you might glimpse individuals dressed in slightly more revealing or distinctive clothing, their eyes meeting yours with a knowing gaze. The interactions would be brief, transactional, and conducted in hushed tones. The night provided the necessary discretion for both the provider and the client, allowing for transactions that would be frowned upon, or even punished, in the harsh light of day. This was a raw, pragmatic side of human desire, a service provided under the veil of darkness. Even within established marriages, the night was the designated time for intimacy. Ancient Egyptian texts, including medical papyri, offer advice on fertility, contraception, and remedies for sexual issues, indicating a healthy and open approach to sexuality within marriage. The quiet, private space of the marital bed, away from the prying eyes and ears of the rest of the household which might be sleeping in the same room. But still, in the dark, was where marital bonds were deepened and children conceived. The darkness itself added an element of privacy and heightened sensation. The festivals, particularly those honoring goddesses of love and fertility like Hathor, sometimes took on a more bacchanalian flavor after dark, especially for the lower classes. While official temple rituals might be solemn, the street celebrations accompanying them could be quite different. Imagine a feast day in honor of Hathor. After the daytime processions and offerings, as night falls, the streets might fill with people dancing, singing, and drinking. The music would be louder, the movements more uninhibited. The beer and wine would flow freely, loosening inhibitions. In this festive, often chaotic atmosphere, with torches flaring and shadows dancing, boundaries could blur, and expressions of desire, both overt and subtle, would be more tolerated, if not openly encouraged. It was a temporary suspension of some social rules, a chance to let loose under the moon. The moon itself, the great luminary of the night, held a certain significance for lovers, often associated with deities like Thoth, the god of wisdom and magic, or with goddesses like Khonsu, a lunar god. Its gentle light was seen as a witness to secret affections. Its phases could even be associated with cycles of fertility and passion. You might gaze up at a full moon, feeling its cool, silver light on your skin, and understand why so many human desires seemed to awaken and flourish under its watchful, yet discreet, presence. However, These expressions of desire were not without their risks. For illicit lovers, discovery could mean severe punishment, social ostracization, or even violence. For those engaging in commercial sex, there was the constant threat of exploitation, disease, and the unpredictable nature of their clientele. The night, while offering freedom, also magnified vulnerability. Ultimately, the nightlife of ancient Egypt, in its hidden corners, reveals a complex tapestry of human desire. From the tender, secret meetings of young lovers defying social norms, to the pragmatic exchanges of a hidden economy, to the intimate moments within a marriage, and the uninhibited revelry of festivals, the darkness provided a canvas for a spectrum of human passions. It reminds you that despite the passage of millennia, the fundamental drives of the human heart, for connection, pleasure, and intimacy, remain eternal, finding their own unique expressions in every age, especially when the watchful eye of the sun has turned away and the world is shrouded in the permissive cloak of night. As the ancient Egyptian night reaches its deepest, most profound hours, when the world outside your small home is at its most silent and mysterious, another realm opens up, the realm of dreams. For the Egyptians' dreams were not just random neurological phenomena, they were profound messages, often from the gods, from ancestors, or even glimpses into the future. The night, therefore, was not merely a time for rest, but a time for receiving divine communication and seeking guidance from the unseen world. Imagine yourself lying on your simple straw mat, the oil lamp long extinguished, your room plunged into absolute darkness, save for the faint moonlight filtering through a roof vent. You are in that liminal state between waking and sleeping, a state ancient Egyptians considered particularly conducive to receiving divine messages. Your mind, freed from the day's earthly concerns, becomes a receptive vessel. You might drift into a dream, vivid and strange, perhaps filled with symbols that puzzle you upon waking. The interpretation of dreams was a significant profession. If you experienced a particularly potent or disturbing dream, you wouldn't dismiss it. You would seek out a professional dream interpreter, often a priest or a scribe, in the morning. These individuals possessed specialized knowledge, using dream books that listed various symbols and their meanings. If a man sees himself seeing Ra, a dream book might state, "It means good things are coming." But if you dreamt of a crocodile, that could portend danger. The nocturnal journey of your mind, therefore, held real, tangible consequences for your waking life, beyond personal dreams. There were more formal methods of seeking divine guidance through the night, dream incubation. If you were suffering from an illness, grappling with a difficult decision, or seeking a specific prophecy, you might undertake a ritual to induce a divine dream. This often involved traveling to a specialized temple, like those dedicated to Imhotep, a deified physician or Serapis in later periods. Imagine this journey. You would arrive at the temple precincts at dusk, perhaps after a day of purification, rituals, and fasting. You would present your request to a priest, explaining your dilemma or ailment. The priest would then lead you to a designated incubation chamber, a quiet, secluded part of the temple, designed to be conducive to dreaming. It might be a small, dark room, perhaps with a stone bed or a simple mat. You would perform further prayers, make offerings to the gods, and then lie down, consciously intending to receive a divine message in your sleep. The air would be thick with the scent of incense, the silence profound, broken only by your own breathing and the distant sounds of the temple at night. You would focus your mind on your question, allowing the repetitive prayers and the sacred atmosphere to lull you into a state of heightened receptivity. As you drift off to sleep in that sacred space, you are not just sleeping, you are actively engaging with the divine. The dreams that follow would be considered direct communications from the gods. They might be symbolic, requiring interpretation by the attending priests in the morning, or they might be remarkably clear, offering direct instructions for a cure, a course of action, or a prediction of the future. The experience would be both deeply spiritual and profoundly personal, a direct conduit to the divine will, made possible by the silence and mystery of the night. Some temples also offered oracular services. While oracles could be consulted by day, the night might lend an extra layer of mystique and power to the pronouncements. Priests, acting as mouthpieces for the gods, would deliver answers to complex questions, often after undergoing their own nocturnal rituals or dream incubations. You might stand in a dimly lit courtyard, surrounded by shadows, listening intently as a priest, perhaps cloaked in heavy robes, delivers a god's cryptic message, his voice resonating in the quiet night air. The stars themselves, as mentioned before, were not just subjects of scientific observation, but also held oracular power. Astrologers, often priests, would chart the movements of planets and constellations, interpreting their configurations as omens or indicators of future events. These complex calculations and observations, carried out under the vast, unpolluted night sky, were believed to reveal the will of fate and the cosmic order. For you, the common person, the stars were a distant, silent text, interpreted by the learned few to shed light on your destiny. The very absence of light at night amplified the human imagination and intuition. When your eyes were denied clear vision, your other senses and your inner perceptions became more acute. This created a fertile ground for spiritual experiences. You might feel a stronger connection to the deceased ancestors, believing their spirits were more active and communicative after dark. You might offer a silent prayer to Osiris, Lord of the underworld, asking for peace for your loved ones, or for wisdom to guide your own journey. The practice of magic also found its potent hour at night. While some magic was practiced by day, many spells and rituals, particularly those invoking specific deities or spirits, were believed to be more effective under the cover of darkness. The moon's phases, the alignment of stars, and the general solitude of the night were all considered crucial elements for empowering magical workings. A magician, operating in secret, might perform a ritual under the light of the moon, calling upon ancient powers to achieve their desired outcome, whether it be for healing, protection, or even harm. So, as you lay in the darkness of your own bedroom, perhaps contemplating your own dreams from the night before, remember that for the ancient Egyptian, the hours of slumber were far from idle. They were a sacred interlude, a time when the physical world receded and the spiritual world drew closer. The night was a canvas for divine communication, a realm where gods whispered, ancestors advised, and the future sometimes revealed itself through symbolic visions. It was a time of both profound personal introspection and direct engagement with the mysteries of the universe, all unfolding under the watchful, silent gaze of the eternal Egyptian night. As we near the end of our journey through the strange nightlife of ancient Egypt, you feel a subtle shift in the air, a faint, almost imperceptible lightening on the eastern horizon. The deepest part of the night, the hour of profound darkness and mystery, begins to recede. A sense of anticipation, an ancient, instinctual awareness, stirs within you. This isn't merely the end of a long night. It's the culmination of a cosmic battle, the triumphant return of Ra, the first hint of dawn. The pale, almost colorless light that seeps into the sky brings with it a collective sigh of relief, both from the land and, metaphorically, from your ancient Egyptian soul. You feel the chill of the pre-dawn air, a final coolness before the sun's warmth asserts itself. The stars, which blazed with such incredible intensity hours before, now begin to fade, one by one, swallowed by the encroaching light. The Milky Way, so dominant in the dark sky, dissolves into a faint, cloudy streak. Losing its definition, the sounds of the night, too, begin their retreat. The distant howl of the jackal, the hoot of the owl, the persistent hum of night insects, these give way to the first tentative stirrings of the day. You might hear the crow of a rooster, a sound universally associated with the dawn, or the awakening chirps of sparrows nesting in the palm trees. The lowing of cattle, being roused for their morning milking or to be led to the fields, becomes more distinct. The rhythmic thud-scrape of the quern stone might resume in a neighboring home, signaling the start of the day's meal preparations, as the sun's disk finally breaches the eastern desert line, painting the sky in glorious, fiery hues of golden rose. You feel a visceral surge of gratitude. This isn't just a pretty sunrise. It is a profound religious experience. Ra, the mighty sun god, has successfully navigated the perils of the Duat, defeated the serpent Apep, and is reborn, bringing light and life back to the world. You instinctively turn towards the rising sun, perhaps offering a silent prayer of thanks for its return, for the banishment of the darkness, and for the promise of a new day. The shadows, which stretched so long and held so much mystery and danger, now shrink and retreat, becoming mere echoes of their former selves. The world, which felt vast and threatening in its darkness, now becomes clearly defined, safe, and familiar. The colors return to the landscape, the vibrant green of the Nile's banks, the ochre of the desert, the deep blue of the sky. The heat begins to build again, but it's a welcome heat, a life-giving force. This cycle of day and night, of light and darkness, was the fundamental rhythm of ancient Egyptian existence. It wasn't just a physical phenomenon. It was a deeply ingrained spiritual truth, a metaphor for life, death, and rebirth. The night, with all its dangers, mysteries, and opportunities for divine connection, was a necessary prelude to the life-giving day. It was a time for reflection, for fear, for love, for ritual, and for dreams, a time when the veil between worlds thinned, and the unseen became more palpable. As you awaken fully from your ancient slumber, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, you are struck by the profound differences between that ancient night and your own modern experience. You exist in a world where darkness is largely a choice, easily conquered by a flick of a switch. Your nights are filled with artificial light, with entertainment, with constant connectivity. The dangers that lurked for the ancient Egyptian are, for the most part, relegated to history books or thrillers. You rarely experience true, unadulterated darkness or the deep, encompassing silence that once defined the nocturnal world. But perhaps, just perhaps, having journeyed through that ancient night, you feel a new appreciation for the darkness, not as something to be feared or immediately illuminated, but as a force in itself. Perhaps you feel a renewed sense of connection to the natural rhythms of the earth, to the silent wisdom of the stars, and to the profound human experience of navigating a world less dominated by man-made light, and more by the raw, untamed forces of nature, the ancient Egyptian night. in all its strange, beautiful, and sometimes brutal reality, was a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and spiritual depth. It shaped their fears, their beliefs, their art, and their daily lives. It reminds you that while technology has changed our external world immeasurably, the human heart, with its capacity for love, fear, hope, and wonder, remains eternally connected to these ancient rhythms. So, as you stretch and prepare to face your own day, carry with you a fragment of that ancient darkness, a whisper of its mysteries, and a renewed appreciation for the glorious, life-giving light that always, eventually, follows the deepest night. The sun is fully risen now, Ra has returned, and the ancient world, for a brief moment, has offered you a glimpse into its shadowed heart. Thank you for joining me on this journey.